Mhm. Speaker screen. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 6th installment of our Interventions Zoominar. Would you all give me a yes in the chat if you can hear me at this point? We are recording, and I want to go ahead and get started. Okay. Thanks. It looks like everybody can hear me. I'm Terry Bozinger, literacy consultant here at the AEA. Here at AEA 267 in Cedar Falls. Patty Foster is joining me today. She will answer the chat questions and provide you with the links to the PowerPoint and the intervention bank at the end of our session today. We do understand the link for the comprehension session is broken. We will have it repaired and relinked on the website hopefully tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get started. If I can move here.
Actually, Terry, I think that it is fixed. I was able to get into it just a minute ago.
You were? Okay, very good. Thank you for letting me know. Today, during this session, you will gain an understanding of academic vocabulary words, also known as Tier 2 words. Participants will understand the underlying research and empirical evidence supporting the use of the frameworks outlined here today, and you'll gain a useful knowledge of 3 vocabulary instructional frameworks. Vocabulary is the words we must know to communicate effectively. It can be described as oral vocabulary or reading vocabulary. Oral vocabulary refers to the words that we use in speaking or recognize in listening. Reading vocabulary refers to the words we recognize or use in print. Vocabulary is used to make sense of words in print. Readers cannot understand what they're reading without knowing what most of the words mean. And this is according to the Iowa Department of Education. There are 4 types. There are 4 types of vocabulary. Listening vocabulary, which are the words we need to know to understand what we hear. Speaking vocabulary, the words we use when we speak. Reading vocabulary, the words we need to know to understand what we read. And writing vocabulary, the words we use in writing. The research says 2 things. First, most vocabulary is learned indirectly. Children learn the meanings of words indirectly through everyday experience with oral and written language. Children learn word meanings indirectly in 3 ways. They engage daily in oral language, so young children learn word meanings through conversations with other people, especially adults. As they engage in these conversations, children often hear adults repeat words several times. They also may hear adults use new words and interesting words. The more oral language experiences children have, the more word meanings they learn. Secondly, they listen to adults read to them. Children learn word meanings from listening to adults read to them. Reading aloud is particularly helpful when the reader after the read. Conversations about books help children to learn new words and concepts and to relate them to their prior knowledge and experiences. And finally, they read extensively on their own. The more children read on their own, the more words they encounter, and the more word meanings they learn. Next, the research indicates Providing students with specific word instruction and teaching students word learning strategies helps them. Next, some vocabulary must be taught directly. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Although a great deal of vocabulary is learned indirectly, some vocabulary should be taught directly. Direct instruction helps students learn difficult words, such as words that represent complex concepts that are not part of the student's everyday experiences. Direct instruction of vocabulary is relevant to given text and leads to better reading comprehension. So direct instruction includes providing students with specific word instruction and teaching students word learning strategies. Teaching specific words before reading helps both vocabulary learning and reading comprehension. Before students read a text, it is helpful to teach them specific words. Helps to teach them specific words they'll see in the text. But remember, if a word is defined in context, you don't need to spend time pre-teaching it. Extended instruction that promotes active engagement with vocabulary improves word learning as well. Children learn words best when they are provided with instruction over an extended period of time, and when the instruction has them work actively with the words. The more students use new words and the more they use them in different contexts, the more likely they are to learn the words. Repeated exposure to vocabulary in many contexts aids word learning too. Students learn new words better when they encounter them often and in various their exposure to the new words. Here's some facts. First grade children from high SES groups know about twice as many words as low socioeconomic students. High school seniors near the top of their class know about 4 times as many words as their lower performing classmates. High knowledge third graders have vocabularies that are about equal to low performing 12th graders. The most chilling of all, these differences appear to be very difficult to remediate. Research confirms that learning more vocabulary is tied to higher reading comprehension. Explicit vocabulary instruction is necessary, but also insufficient for helping students increase their vocabulary. Much of the vocabulary students learn and apply are the result of increased reading and writing. Good vocabulary instruction can narrow the gap between a competent reader's comprehension and a struggling reader's comprehension. Researchers have identified vocabulary limitations as a major fact in the achievement gap between higher income and disadvantaged students. Reading is an important way to acquire vocabulary in of strategy. Early on, words are learned from oral context, but later, vocabulary development relies on words being learned from written context. It is not easy to learn words from written context. Therefore, children must read widely in order to encounter enough words to add to their increasing vocabulary. The second assumption here is that school-age children successfully add words to their vocabularies, and young children need to learn about 7 words per day. Implicit exposure to words is simply not enough. We must directly teach new vocabulary to students. The task of directly teaching 7 words per day is simply unreasonable. So we need to focus on words that are most useful and teach words in context. Children must learn many words implicitly simply by repeated exposure. The child's knowledge of a word will fall on a continuum. The first point on the continuum is when a child has no knowledge of the word. He may have heard the word used before, but has no idea what the word means. As knowledge builds, the child gains a general sense of the word. He may understand the word's connotation, but doesn't know the meaning. Then the child's word knowledge narrows. Their knowledge of word is bound by the context in which it was read, but he's unable to apply the meaning in a different context. Next, the child is beginning to gain a deeper understanding of the word meaning, but might have some difficulty using it in appropriate situations. And finally, the child has a rich knowledge of the word and is able to readily use the word and can teach others about the meaning of the word. As you can see, it takes multiple exposures to a word for a child to internalize its meaning and use it appropriately. Isabel Beck's advice is to focus intentional vocabulary instruction on Tier 2 words and help children make connections among those words. Vocabulary instruction must take place alongside rich encounters with text. Students deemed substantially deficient on the FAST assessment should be taught in small groups of 3 to 5 students. Tier 1 words are very simple and basic. They are mostly learned without instruction. Tier 2 words appear frequently in the vocabularies of mature language users. They are not connected to a particular domain, but are pervasive. Examples are fascinate, unfortunate, enthralled, and mentioned. Tier 3 words are specialized and are often related to scientific domains. They're usually learned through content area study and appear infrequently in our language. Examples of these words are ectoplasm or cabriolet. When teachers are considering which words to teach, it's important to remember the importance and utility of the word, the instructional potential of the word, and the conceptual understanding of the word. Go ahead and read the information from the slide. When considering words for instruction, if you can answer yes to the following question, the word is probably appropriate for direct instruction. So here's the question. Can the student express the new concept of the word in other ways? In other words, does the student have the vocabulary to support the concept of the word? Also, you might consider whether or not the targeted word is productive. Does learning the word allow students to explain something with greater specificity? Why teach academic vocabulary? Many students acquire background knowledge outside of school and come to subject area classes ready to access the new knowledge. However, for some students who lacked the opportunity to gain adequate background knowledge, we must spend time teaching them in a systematic way to develop the knowledge they're lacking. Today I will provide 3 models of vocabulary instruction. The first model is Isabel Beck's robust instruction. The second model is Robert Marzano's building academic vocabulary. And the third model is Michael Graves' multifaceted comprehensive vocabulary instruction. You will find that they all have similar characteristics, but some slight variations are present. Isabel Beck provides a framework for vocabulary instruction called robust instruction. She lists 5 steps in word learning, and they are to contextualize words, provide friendly explanations, provide an additional context for the word, provide opportunities for students to actively process word meanings, provide for a high frequency of encounters over time. New words should be introduced within context. Providing students with a list of words that are deemed vocabulary words outside of context is very problematic for students. We must provide them with the opportunity to learn words that come from authentic contexts. Giving students definitions alone are not helpful, but if they're presented with a context that's connected to text, especially after reading a meaningful text, the definition becomes much more helpful. Isabel Beck recommends introducing word meanings by explaining them in everyday connected language. Friendly explanations provide a complete sentence that includes the target word. Here's an example for the word devious. The dictionary definition of devious is straying from the right course, not straightforward. A friendly explanation might be, if someone is devious, he is using tricky and secretive ways to do something dishonest. You can find friendly definitions of words in the Collins CoBuild Student Dictionary, and I've given that link in the resources section of the Intervention Bank. We do want to make sure that learners don't limit their use of words to the context in which they're introduced. After the contextual introduction and word meaning explanation, students should be presented with other context for the word. Decontextualizing the vocabulary helps students learn, understand, and generalize the word across a range of contexts. We also want to encourage our students to engage in active processing, in contrast to simply entering new information into memory. Encouraging our students to assimilate new learning with previous knowledge is the main goal for this step in the robust instruction framework. Robust instruction involves providing frequent encounters with each new word. The importance of encountering new words frequently is recommended by most vocabulary researchers. The encounters need to include a variety of contexts and situations that encourage processing words and occur over a several-day period. This is Robert Marzano's framework for building academic vocabulary. I will explain each step. Step 1, the teacher provides a description, explanation, or example of the term. Determine what students already know about the term. Provide students with some initial information about the term that they're learning. You might simply ask them what they already know about the specified word and listen carefully to their responses. They might have misconceptions about the meaning of the word. Some things you might consider when offering students more information about a word. Introduce direct experiences. Talk about a field trip that went on or a guest speaker they listened to. Tell a story that integrates the term. Use video or images to stimulate discussions. Use inquiry. Ask students to do some initial investigating on their own. Use current events to help make the new learning applicable to them. Describe your own mental image of the term. Find or create pictures that exemplify the term. This step does not involve students looking up the word in a dictionary. Step 2, students restate the description, explanation, or example in their own words. The students should not copy what the teacher said in his description. The student should construct his own description of the new term. The student's responses do not need to be complete, but they should be free of misconceptions. If students struggle with this step, the teacher can go back to step 1 and provide additional explanations. Allow the students to work in small groups or with partners to establish the meaning together. Or if they have a general idea of the word but are struggling to verbalize the meaning, you might consider moving right on to step 3. Ask the students, though, to record the descriptions in their vocabulary notebooks. Step 3, students construct a picture, pictograph, or symbolic representation or act out the term. This forces students to think in non-linguistic ways. Students need modeling and direct instruction. Students might feel like they can draw, like they can't draw, which, at least initially, can be challenging for them. The teacher needs to model and provide examples of rough sketches and drawings that represent the ideas. Allow students to work in small groups or in pairs, at least initially. This step does require a lot of practice. Step 4, the teacher extends and refines understanding of the word by engaging in activities that help them add to their knowledge of the term in their vocabulary notebooks. Understanding of new terms deepens when students continually re-encounter the vocabulary term. Students should be able to add, revise, edit, or revisit the term in their vocabulary notebooks. You might consider having the students highlight a prefix or suffix that will help them remember the term, identify synonyms or antonyms for the term, draw an additional picture or graphic, list related words, write brief cautions or reminders of common confusions, or even translate the term into another language. Periodically ask students to discuss the terms with one another. Research confirms that interacting with others deepens our understanding of new terms. Consider using a technique called Think, Pair, Share. Think, Pair, Share is an opportunity to provide students with time to think about their new understanding related to the vocabulary terms. You might consider using think-alouds to model this thinking, at least initially. Then, organize the students into pairs and ask them to discuss their descriptions and pictures of the terms with their partners. And then finally, share with the class any new understandings or insights they might have related to the vocabulary learning. After the Think, Pair, Share, ask the students to make additions or revisions to their vocabulary notebooks. And step 6, involve students in games that enable them to play with the terms and reinforce their word knowledge. Games can help you keep the new terms in the forefront of the students' thinking. Games allow students to re-examine their understanding of the vocabulary terms. You might even consider scheduling a specific time during the week to play vocabulary games. Pictionary is a great game to play. A key to effective vocabulary instruction is monitoring the learning of our students. Vocabulary building is not a linear process. We constantly enrich our vocabularies by discovering richer meanings for words we know and by making connections between words. These are some assessment techniques. Take a minute to read the slide. So we're going to have a chance to turn and chat. Here, I've presented to you 2 frameworks so far. Take a minute to discuss how the frameworks are the same, and just have a moment to chat about the similarities.
I'm sorry, Terry, were we supposed to chat in the chat pod or chat out loud, or what are we supposed to do?
You can do either of those. You can chat out loud or chat in the chat pod. If you're sitting next to each other, you might chat with a person sitting next to each other. What are the similarities between the two frameworks I've presented so far?
I guess one of the similarities I see is that it's not dictionary definitions, that they are generated definitions.
I think both frameworks also ask the student to decontextualize the word and come up with a meaning in their own words. If you feel like you want to share, you can unmute your mic. Otherwise, we'll keep going. Okay, here we go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I guess another thing that I see that is similar is that it is using the word in a variety of ways over time. So that it's, you know, even if you are working with a word over time, it's not just matching definition to word, but that you're using the word, actually using the word in a variety of ways over time.
Yes, thank you. So we learned about Marzano's six-step process to teaching vocabulary and Isabel Beck's robust instruction model. In the next few slides, I'm going to present you with a final research-based instructional approach to vocabulary instruction. And it's a mouthful. It's called Multifaceted Comprehensive Vocabulary Instruction. And it's the work of Michael Graves. And just like Marzano's six-step process, this instructional model integrates vocabulary instruction into the existing literacy block. It is not a freestanding element. And this model, by the way, was developed as a direct result of the National Reading Panel results report in 2000. So, the multifaceted comprehensive vocabulary instruction model provides and engages students in rich and varied language activities, teaches individual, general, academic, and domain-focused vocabulary, develops students' independent learning strategies, and stimulates and develops word consciousness. So there are three approaches to this model. Not all learning requires intentional teacher-directed instruction. In this model, the first instructional technique helps cement indirect word learning. A teacher should flood the classroom with words related to the topic of study. There's no way we can intentionally teach all of the words our students need to learn each year. Students can create word blasts or semantic maps to begin building knowledge of terms related to the subject in which the students are learning. So similar to Marzano's approach, students are encouraged to keep a vocabulary notebook and continually revise and edit the content of that notebook. You can also use FAST instruction, not fast assessment, but fast instruction. The instruction is for terms where an easy definition or analogy is all that's needed to build adequate knowledge of the term. Fast-paced instruction identifies the word, provides a synonym, gives an example of its use, and then asks students to provide their own connection to the term. Finally, focused instruction is for words where deeper, semantically rich teaching of a new concept is required. Use both a definition and contextual information, multiple exposures, and deep levels of processing so that the student develops a rich base for word learning. This instruction takes time and energy, but pays off with deep learning of those less familiar words that are often less concrete. As you can see, these three frameworks that I described today have very similar features. Remember, it is crucial to have meaningful encounters with words, not in isolation, but that are connected to text and are authentic. A hallmark to good instruction is to have the learner actively attempt to construct their own meaning. This is a document in your intervention bank. Remember, any one of these strategies can be used in large group or in small groups as an intervention, but keep in mind vocabulary instruction should occur during all of your vast reading and writing opportunities throughout the day. In order to capture your students' interests, you will want to consider a number of approaching interactive vocabulary lessons in which you explicitly introduce new vocabulary words and strategies. You might consider using word webs in which you make a schematic diagram for a specific word. Another possibility is to use word analogies. An example of a word analogy is happy is to sad as big as to little. When using word substitutions, a teacher would put several sentences on a chart and help students think of synonyms, verbs, adjectives, or adverbs, and discuss the changes in meaning when you change a word or two. You can also consider using semantic maps or word sorts to compare and contrast words and their definitions. Here is the intervention bank for vocabulary, and Patty will put the link in the chat box for you to access. A list of resources the future. 31st, Joe Kramer will talk about assessment. So we'll stay on for a few minutes if you have any questions today, but thanks for tuning in today. Have a good week.
I am loading. Here it goes. There we go. I'll be there momentarily.
Looks like Patty is loading the links right now.
I just have to share, Terry, you were talking about Isabel Beck's robust instruction, and I had a teacher who was learning that and trying that out, and she used the word patch, and this is with primary grade students, but the word patch, and she did such a masterful job of revealing the word throughout a number of lessons, because first they were talking about a patch of snow on the ground or a patch of weeds, but then she moved to patches on clothing, and eventually a patch that a pirate might have or someone might have over their eye. And so she just kept, like an onion, just kept unpeeling this seemingly very simple word for these kids, and I think that's just so important.
Thank you. That's a great example. I think you're right. The more they learn those authentic meanings, the more they'll stick.
I am putting the link for the PowerPoint in the chat box as well.
Okay. So Patty is loading the link for the PowerPoint, and you can download that PDF if you'd like, and it's going up in just a moment. We do want to make sure we answer all of your questions today. So if you do have a question or want to add something to the vocabulary to the vocabulary session, please feel free to do that. I see both of the links are up. The intervention bank is up and the PowerPoint is up. So if you click on those, please let us know also if you have trouble, because we do sometimes run into issues with those links. So we will remedy the situation if you let us know.
Terry, I don't know on your sheet with all the links to different strategies. Is there a link to the AEA 267 vocabulary page anywhere there?
There is not, but I can add it. I certainly can go back and add that in just a few minutes. I do know that it's there. I looked at it for this presentation, actually.
Well, I would just want everybody else out there to be aware that the vocabulary page that's on the AEA 267 web page under English Language Arts has a lot of guidance about Tier 2 words and strategies. So it's a good resource.
Thank you. I'll add that link to the additional resources at the bottom of the intervention bank just as soon as we're done. All right, if that's everything, please make sure that you have a good weekend. I know there's still a work day tomorrow, but we'll see you on Tuesday for assessment. Thanks, everyone.